Welcome to Podcasting Smarter, the podcast for podcasters by podcasters. Podcasting Smarter is the official podcast from Podbean, featuring podcasting interviews, best practices, and helpful tips. We're here to give you the tools, resources, product updates, and news to help you get started podcasting and keep your podcast growing.
Welcome to Podcasting Smarter, where we unlock the secrets of successful podcasting. I'm your host, Norma Jean Belenke from Podbean. Today, we're exploring how to start your podcast journey with the help of Podbean Academy. Stay with us because we'll be revealing the key to crafting a standout first episode, a must-know for all aspiring podcasters. Get ready for an episode packed with essential, actionable advice. Stay tuned, and here we go. Hi, John. How's it going?
I'm doing well, thank you. We're going to be talking about Podbean Academy. I've been shooting for the last couple of days, all the different content that everybody's going to be seeing coming up here. So I can tell you that I'm very excited to be chatting all about Podbean Academy today.
Absolutely. And we're so excited about the launch of this huge educational resource from Podbean. But first off today, as we're talking about launching a podcast, what are the essential first steps in starting a podcast? And what are we sharing at Podbean Academy about that first initial launch?
Sure. So the first track that everyone's going to see with Podbean Academy upon the relaunch is the How to Start a Podcast track. And with that and all the different resources, we're going over exactly what you talked about. Now, what are some of those pieces? First and foremost, we want to think about the why behind our show. And a lot of what you'll see in Podbean Academy goes over, of course, the tools that we provide, but it really goes over the successful track of being a podcaster. And that why is super important behind basically why you're starting your show, right? Are you starting your show because it's something for business? Are you starting your show because you have a passion that you want to share with an audience and you just want to be part of a bigger community? Is this something where you're using your podcast to help grow your brand or become a thought leader in your space? There's all different sorts of considerations as to why different podcasters start. But the first thing is really thinking about your why. And in the courses, we go ahead and give you some thoughts as to how to help you get there, not just from ideation, but also ways to help you figure out, okay, what kind of content am I creating? How long is that content? How much time per week am I going to spend creating said content? What is my audience? We call that our audience persona, or as many of you have heard over time, audience avatar. So there's lots of different resources just from that way. And I could talk all day about the why. The next thing is really talking about what's going to happen when you hit record, right? What kind of essential gear do you need? What kind of preparations do you need before time? How do you set up your room? What are all of these different pieces to consider to make sure that when you hit record, you're set up for success in the best way possible, both from a hardware perspective and from a preparation perspective? We talk about choosing the best podcast host and what goes into a successful podcast host like Podbean, what we offer, what you want to look for in terms of what makes the most sense for you. And then we also go into, after that, what happens now that you've started publishing content. You hit that first episode publish button. You're so excited to go. We're excited for you, obviously. But where do you take it from here? And what are some kind of key critical upfront steps that you can do to help even grow your show a little bit more, start getting some initial engagement? And what are some things that you should start thinking about now that you've hit that publish button? So all of those different things are what needs to be considered when you start a podcast, but it also gives you a nice framework as to what you can expect from the literature coming out. I say literature as if it's all words. There's going to be lots of videos. There's going to be lots of actionable items.
Lots of how-tos.
Yes.
You're definitely the king of how-tos here at Podbean. John, I want to talk next about kind of some success stories of podcasters who have really benefited from Podbean's educational resources, because obviously we're hosting a monetization company, but there's a lot of resources that we offer and it can be kind of overwhelming. So what are some success stories that we can share here to inspire aspiring podcasters about how to succeed?
Of course. I think that one of the most important things that we've seen is through our support team, through our customer success team, through all the different teams that we have at Podbean, everybody has had different questions potentially about where they are in their podcasting journey, whether it's a troubleshooting question or whether it's a, where do I go next with my show? And man, we can go through the litany of different conversations that we've had throughout the course of time. One podcaster that I just got off the phone with written off the phone. What are we? We're in 1999, everybody. One that I just had a Zoom call with. We were talking about where they were. And currently they're sitting at about 5,000 downloads, 6,000 downloads per month. And through a variety of different resources, including us talking about the analytics and really breaking down, okay, check out this support video that we have, breaking down all the different analytic tools that we have, and us hopping on a call to have a conversation and providing additional resources as to one of my favorite analytics that we use, our time of day heat map. They were able to go in and say, wow, just by changing the day that I'm publishing, once I now understand my listener behaviors, was able to help them raise by about 20 to 30% their listenership, because they were able to really key in on when listeners were listening to their show. And based on that, they were able to publish at a time that worked more conveniently for them. So it's something that maybe as someone creating content for me, I'm like, oh, I'm just creating resources for people. I'm creating more ways that people can learn about our services and leverage our services. But you never know who has what need at what time. And being able to provide that resource to that podcaster was crucial in them being able to grow their audience, which for them, advertising is huge. Growing your audience is massive for wanting to bring in more advertisers to the show. So all of those things.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something where I think we're going to talk about in a future episode about the resources that Podbean Academy has for growing your podcast. But even initially for podcasters out there that are at the launch phase, learning the different analytics, what they do, how you can use them is so important. So we've definitely got a lot of tutorials in there that break down a lot of those different analytics. Like you were saying, John, the heat map, that time of day heat map that we have here at Podbean is such an important statistic for so many podcasters because it's going to tell you when people are listening, what time of day, what day of the week. And so you know with that consistency when to launch your show every week or every day or every 2 weeks or whatever it is, right? And how to meet your audience when they're at, not necessarily where they're at, but the when. And last today, I want to talk about common challenges that podcasters face. There's a few things that happen when you start a podcast, including burnout, which I'm sure that we're going to talk about in a little bit, but it's something where addressing these challenges head on is something that Podbean Academy is really doing, and the educational resources we have really address. So can you talk a little bit about some of those challenges?
The way that we've crafted the resources with Podbean Academy is really focused on, as you said, creating a podcaster's initial journey and experience based on some of those reasons why we see podcasters burn out or some initial hardships up front. And when we think about something like the why is such an important part of your show. The why answers so many questions when you start your show. And it's something that I think often gets overlooked. A lot of us see how easy it is to enter the podcasting medium and the podcasting landscape. But once we actually hit that record button, first things that go through a podcaster's head sometime is, wow, that's how my voice sounds when I'm recording? That's crazy. I think that I've gone through all of the things that I can talk about because I've gotten to episode 1. I've gotten it all out there. It's on record. What do I do now? And these are some of the things that we try to address with the Podbean Academy materials is, okay, before you even hit record, start putting some pieces into place. Think about, again, why are you starting your show? And that also helps you define your podcast success. Before you even hit record, if you're sitting there thinking about what you're creating, how you're going to create it, how long it's going to be, and giving just some of these things aren't even hour-long pieces that you have to do. Some of these things are just 3-minute conversations you can have with yourself and just create kind of pipeline and a roadmap for yourself. These things are going to help you become a more successful podcaster before you even hit the record button. So based on customer feedback, based on conversations we've had with podcasters in the industry and things that we've heard from you, the listeners, we really wanted to create that resource based around those reasons and help mitigate those before we even get to that pod fade. So you'll find that a lot of what we talk about in Academy and how we frame it, and even going into some of the support materials we offer, all highlight basically the questions that you're asking or the questions that you may not even know you're going to be asking or the feelings you're going to be able to be feeling.
And I think that that's probably one of the most important things in terms of launching your first episode and making sure it's a standout. It's making sure that you have all those boxes checked and that you're really set up for success. Well, John, thank you so much. It's just been such a pleasure. And before we go, do you have any last standout tips for a big first episode to help our podcasters launch with success?
Yeah, definitely. In your first episode, one piece of advice I can give is let people know what the show is going to be about. Or if you have that really big interview that you've recorded, like let's say you are a podcaster that has some foot traffic before time, make that first episode something that sets the tone for what people can expect. Never be afraid to tell people where they can find your show or your resources or anything like that. Start off with either your most poignant episode that you can think of at the time. Tell people what the podcast is going to be about, what they can expect, where they can find it. If you have any action items, start today telling them about that. If they can support you over on your Patreon or anything like that, start letting people know that right away. It's going to only help you build success quicker if you create the landscape that the podcaster can understand. Okay, this is when this is going to happen. One more thing I will give, in all of the pieces that we're talking about, if you can go ahead and set up your schedule in the first episode and say, hey, every Sunday at 3 p.m., expect a new episode, you can start helping build that listener behavior and engagement from episode 1. So all of these things together, you're using that first episode to inform what your podcast is going to be about, set the tone for what people can expect, and any action items down to publishing time or, hey, support me here or do this or do that. All of those things right up front will be crucial in just that upfront initial success. So definitely those are the big pieces of advice from the content side for sure.
Absolutely. And I always recommend have a trailer, right? Have a trailer for your podcast. Give people a little bit of a preview of what your podcast is about. And also in some of the directories, there's special placement for trailers. So it really helps people find your show and fall in love with it.
Absolutely.
Well, John, it's just been such a pleasure. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Podcasting Smarter. If you have any podcasting questions or want to get in touch, send us an email at podcastingsmarter@podbean.com. Thanks so much and happy podcasting.